Well, should we start, Charles and Odette?
Sure.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just say welcome to everyone here. And I really appreciate all of you, especially the regulars, but the new people as well. And we have, of course, I'll have Charles make the introduction of Odette, who's no stranger to the people on this call or these Zoom meetings. At all. She's really a regular here. But before we get into that, I just wanted to remind everyone, if you didn't know it already, that the National Health Federation is having its 70th anniversary event in Dallas, Texas, the middle of March. And if you haven't signed up for it yet, please do so. We have dramatically reduced the price to make access available for others. And for those who paid the higher price, don't fret because you're going to get all sorts of extra benefits, including our new soon to be released Codex Alimentarius Volume 2 book that will be out in print in time for the event. And you'll get that included in your entrance fee. And for those others, all you have to do is be a member of the National Health Federation, and that's it. And you get in for free to the basic package, which is basically most the speakers and the tables. And I have to tell you, we've had such a great outpouring of interest in having a table at our events. I think you could just amuse yourself all day long just by going from table to table and talking to the people there. I mean, it's incredible whom we'll have there just working the tables. So, let alone the speakers, let alone the panels. Our own Charles Frohman is going to be hosting two, maybe three panels. We have had such an incredible turnout of people wanting to speak that honestly, I don't know where to put them all. We may have to have them ride in the cab with you from the airport and talk to you or something just to get everyone in. That's how many speakers we have. So I really think that those of you who do not go will one day regret that you didn't take the opportunity and go. You know, it's always those things we didn't do that we regret the most. It's not the things we do that we regret the most. It's things we didn't do. So I really urge you all to be there, even if only for the Saturday, although Friday and Sunday, March 14th and the 16th will be equally interesting. So that's it. I will turn the floor over to Charles. Oh, for those of you who don't know, go to our website for the event. It's NHF dot small conferences, plural, smallconferences.com, and you'll get all the details there. Pretty much all the details. We're still working on the scheduling of speakers because we have so many, and we want everyone to have the opportunity to hear everyone else. So we're still working on that. So stay tuned for it. But otherwise, go to the website and register, and we'll see you there. It'll be worth your while, I guarantee it. Okay, Charles, I'll turn it over to you because you do such wonderful introductions for Odette and others, and take it away.
Thank you, Scott, and welcome, Odette, and everyone, especially our regulars. We've had some pretty good monthly health freedom brainstorms over the years. And what I'm sharing, of course, is the invitation for today, which I just put in chat. If you would click it, that will help you follow along on details about our guest and topic. And if you scroll down to numbers 2 and 3, number 3 also has a link for the Dallas March 15th weekend conference. We have some great speakers, frontline cardiologist hero Peter McCullough, fired nurse unvaccinated Jennifer Bridges, the father of the health savings account, John Goodman, family farm icon Judith McGeary, um, Fauci nemesis scientist Judy Mikovits, and I am, of course, forgetting some Green Med Info founder, Sayer G. And experts from the world of National Health Federation, and of course, Scott, our president and counsel. He'll give a pretty cool history of our health freedom leadership over the past 70 years, and it's really amazing. What's coolest about it for me is that back in the 1950s, it was the hounding of maverick healers, which really started this organization. And isn't it interesting that with the failure of allopathy and pharma to solve the real epidemic, chronic disease, that these energetic type healers are coming back in popularity and demand because people want to get healed and they're not going to settle for a pill. And what's interesting about the chronic disease epidemic is that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the Trump executive order, um, that order to investigate chronic disease, right here in my Substack article, and I put a link to it, it will include electromagnetic radiation, which is just amazing because Odette and I and wonderful grassroots people every week have been meeting with members of Congress and their staff to educate them about the danger of the coming wireless mesh. Now, in the invitation in Agenda 1, you will have noticed the phrase "we lost on two bills." Despite our fantastic lobbying, we just haven't gotten the scale that we need with the grassroots to really take on the behemoth of telecom. They're almost as powerful as pharma. And so unfortunately, all of the existing cell towers around your neighborhoods will get more antennas because of the defense law that included the auctioning of some spectrum, not much, but some. And the defeats in the parks bill of a couple sections that are going to carpet our national forest with antennas, which are going to make them uninhabitable by the 1/3 of Americans who are already injured by radio frequency and microwave radiation. But we did win on the farm bill. There were a lot of people trying to fight that huge bill, but that's coming back. And that's going to include provisions to goad farmers to accept a lot of transmitters on their farms. And that will be the nexus of our lobbying. But there's a short term goal here, too, that Odette will share, and that's in our national campaign. Um, that's right here. And so I'll put that in chat. And that's it, highlighted here. There is a must-pass budget reconciliation bill that Ted Cruz, the water carrier for the wireless industry, has gotten a colleague of his in the House to try to insert into the reconciliation bill because if you get more spectrum auctions in a must-pass reconciliation bill, you don't have to worry about Democrats filibustering. You only need 51 votes to pass it instead of 60. So we want this email, and I'm going to make some edits this afternoon, but you can go ahead and look at it and be advised. We do need you probably to copy and paste this text into your own email at the contact section of your politician's website. Sometimes these emails don't go through to the right person, but it'll be a good habit for you to develop to find out who your politicians are and to go to the websites and to the contact section and just copy and paste this text there. That'll get them the email and you'll have done your work. We'll also be introducing today the new state campaign that Odette and I can talk about in detail later on. But it has a number of provisions that a lot of you have already been involved with, mainly the smart meter opt out. So that's here. We want to allow whatever community broadband you have in your localities to expand. We want to monitor pollution and power from these antennas and get a itemization of where these antennas are. We want states to copy the recommendations from New Hampshire's commission, including safe hospitals and parks and libraries and schools. We want to have your local governments working with property owners to zone these towers away from our houses and neighborhoods and schools. This is going to be huge. Every one of us has paid a surcharge on our landlines in exchange for a promise of a wired connection. Telecom diverted this money to their wireless schemes. This is going to be a huge scandal when this blows up. We want to get ahead of this and educate our state politicians. Um, Telecom is trying to stop using their copper landlines. In a disaster, that's your only key to access emergency services. We cannot let Telecom do this. If there's going to be state grants for broadband, they should be for wired. Wired lasts half a century. Wireless lasts 5 years and needs to be upgraded and fixed. And finally, there is a compliance piece with the electric grid that's leading to harm to humans and wildlife. So with that, I'll stop share, and Odette is going to go into the details of where we are. We need your help. The bottom line is we need you scheduling meetings with your politicians where Odette and I will be doing the talking, and you'll come in and talk about your efforts to fight towers away from your schools, efforts to get wired solutions in the ground, and evidence of your injury. We've been doing it for over a year every week. So join the campaign with RFK's help, making electromagnetic radiation part of the Chronic Disease Commission. We now have leverage to get success. And with that, Odette, take it away.
Okay, great. Janet has her hand up.
The document you just showed that you said we should copy, you'll send us that in some
I'll put it in chat. I'll put it in chat. And just folks, just write your questions down, and we're going to defer questions until Odette finishes. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me, and it's great being here. I have a prepared presentation, which I will share with you. All right. I'm here to talk about the federal telecom bills and what we're facing and what we can do about it. Last Congress, we had over 70 telecom bills in Congress that would take away all local control. If you think of it as a jigsaw puzzle, where the telecom industry has taken a little bit over here and a little bit over there, if you put it all together, it would take away local control. So these are pictures of cell towers that we're familiar with. There's a pole with lots of different antennas. In New York City, for instance, we have backpacks on our utility poles, which are 4G and 5G. Then we also have the pole top antennas, and this is outside of a third floor apartment outside of a child's bedroom. And then we have rooftop antennas. And these are, you can see, this is in Midtown Manhattan, and we have an antenna farm on top of this building. I certainly would not want to be living there. Then we also have the 5G towers that are being placed in New York City. If that wasn't enough, these are 32-foot structures, and they contain there are 5 bays of antennas, 2 bays for 5G, 2 bays for 4G, and Wi-Fi. And as you can see, they're very close. They're very close to the buildings. There's no fallback provision. There's no fallback perimeter in order to protect people and to protect structures in case there is structural degradation. Now, the whole purpose of these towers and these antennas, we've been told, is to serve those with little or no broadband coverage. So basically to serve the unserved and the underserved. But where's the evidence to show that where they are being placed is where coverage is needed, and that they're placing them where coverage is needed? So this is the case in New York City, for instance, where every time the city and the site developer come and speak before community boards, we have 59 community boards in New York City that liaise with the mayor's office. They've been asked, where is the evidence that there's a gap in service? And they say, well, we don't have that documentation. And the telecom industry considers that proprietary information. So they're using the public rights of way, and they're saying this is proprietary information. And yet the contracts with New York City, between New York City and the site developers, does not require that they provide evidence of a gap in service. So while they're saying that this is going to be bridging the digital divide, there's no evidence that it's actually being done. The U.S. Government Accountability Office said that 5G is likely to exacerbate the digital divide. And the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, in testimony in Congress, said, who's going to be able to afford a 5G phone? And that becomes extremely relevant when you think of technology. I'm a technology transactional attorney, and I know that the economic model for technology companies is planned obsolescence of their services and their products so that they can generate future revenue. And that's called planned obsolescence. So their services and their products have planned obsolescence. And that is also in the telecommunications industry. We have the iPhone 12, then the iPhone 13, then the iPhone 14, 15, and I think now we're up to 16. Pretty soon we'll be up to 20. And that's primarily to get people to buy the new products and the more expensive services. So they artificially retire the service or the product in order to compel consumers to buy new and more expensive products and services. How is that supposed to bridge the digital divide? Because you're always going to be behind the 8 ball trying to catch up with the new technology. So as Charles mentioned, wired is a solution. If you have fiber to the premises, that provides, it's unmatched in speed, reliability, capacity, data security, and it has a huge lifespan, whereas wireless has a lifespan of 5 years. And that's the economic model for technology companies. The obsolescence economic model is 5 years. After 5 years, they change everything over. So fiber has been a national priority with the NTIA, and that was affirmed by the NTIA. There may be some different priorities now, and we're going to try to keep them on course. But the former FCC chair, Tom Wheeler, who also was the former president of the CTIA, which is the largest wireless trade association in the United States, testified in Congress that fiber is future-proof and wireless should only be used as a last resort. And that we spent a lot of money subsidizing corporations and who promised ubiquitous service and didn't provide it. In terms of regulation for public safety, there is no one regulating safety of electromagnetic frequency radiation exposure. Not the EPA, not the FDA, FCC, or the CDC since the mid-1990s. And the FCC's website even states that they don't have the personnel to monitor compliance. Now, the EPA was defunded back in the 1990s when they were involved in a research project that actually found evidence of biological effects from wireless radiation. This was funded by industry. It was headed up by an industry scientist, and he found biological effects of wireless radiation. And he had about 200 scientists underneath him, and that was the conclusion. When that was concluded, the EPA was defunded, and then in the Telecommunications Act of 1996, there was a provision placed in there, Section 704, which states that there can be no legal claim for environmental effects, which also includes health effects, so long as the telecom carriers are operating within the FCC limits for human exposure. So of course, where there is risk, there must be choice, right? So the Telecommunications Act, that provision, the Telecommunications Act Section 704, was heavily lobbied by the industry, and that came on the heels of the EPA study that showed biological effects of wireless radiation. And the FCC rules have massively expanded preemption from voice to broadband. So they can say that the site developers can place cell towers and their antennas anywhere they want, so long as they feel that there's a need. But there is no substantiation, there's no evidence that's required. And so they are basically mandating cell towers despite biological effects. And the industry, of course, is shielded from liability by the Telecommunications Act, so long as they are operating within the FCC limits. Now, there was an executive order that was issued on February 13th that is establishing a commission to study chronic disease. And in one of the sections, it states specifically to study the effects of chronic disease in children from from sources such as electromagnetic radiation. And the chronic disease epidemic that's forming with children is ADHD, brain development disorders, neurological and cardiac disorders, and cancer. So the issue is always, is 5G safe? Now, for 50 years, regulators have ignored a very major report from the U.S. Naval Medical Research Center from 1971, linking wireless radiation to 23 chronic diseases. So that includes radio frequency radiation and microwave radiation, which is what 5G is. So this just came out, it's hot off the press, and it's based on the work of Zori Glazer at the Naval Medical Research Center. So I have the links here, and it's really quite fascinating. But the government has known about this, and they're doing nothing to protect public safety and health. Now, there were 70 federal bills last year, over 70 federal bills last year to eliminate local control. The bills that have passed from past Congress last year were 4 bills. One is HR 6492, the Explore Act, and that deploys cell towers on federal lands, which includes the forests, recreational areas, and that, of course, is going to be disastrous if people are trying to go to the forest in order to get away from electromagnetic radiation. And there are a number of people who are so sensitive and so affected and so poisoned by this radiation that they need to go to forests in order to recuperate. There's going to be no place for them to go if the forests are going to be filled with cell towers. Then there was the Senate Bill 1648, Launch Communications Act. Now this streamlines satellite launches, and that's also problematic because it also leads to contamination of the Earth when the satellites, also having about a 5-year lifespan, where the materials start to fall to the ground, to the Earth, and we don't know what those materials consist of. Then we have HR 5009, which authorized additional spectrum auction. Now, whenever there's a spectrum auction, that means that the telecom carriers are buying spectrum, and when they buy it, in order to recoup their monies, they are going to be putting up antennas, and they're going to be putting them up all over the place, as they are doing right now. And the last one was simply a holdover. There was one of the telecom carriers had paid for an auction spectrum and was never delivered because the FCC's time limit had expired in order to issue that spectrum. So out of over 70 telecom bills that had been introduced, we're very lucky that only 4 got passed. But they're very busy putting forth and reintroducing a number of these bills. And therefore, that's very important because we really need people, more and more people, to come with us to come to these meetings and to organize and to schedule these meetings so that Charles and I can present on the federal bills. Again, you don't have to know anything about the federal bills. We'll do the talking. You just have to come and state what your position is on the issue. Now, one of the worst bills that was introduced last year was, or 2 years ago, was HR 3557. And that's the American Broadband Deployment Act. That took every single success that every community had in the United States and surgically excised it. So, for instance, in New York City, we had a lot of community boards issuing moratoria because they said that there's more information here that they needed to know, and they weren't being provided with answers. So in that bill, it expressly prohibits moratoria. So I think that was directed towards New York City. It also preempts local zoning, It gives the FCC authority to invalidate local regulations. So if there's any regulations for public safety and health, those are preempted. It mandates onerous permitting shot clocks and deemed approved deadlines. So when we speak to the legislative staff, they say, oh, there's a time period of 30 days or 60 days or whatever in order to review these applications. That should be plenty of time. That's not plenty of time. So it's basically writing in that all of these cell towers will be approved. It also undermines collaborative federalism. Collaborative federalism means that there are state interests and federal interests. The Telecommunications Act was designed to preserve both interests so that there would be a balancing of the interests. That's what it says in the Telecommunications Act. Unfortunately, this would undermine it by basically taking a very heavy-handed approach to local regulation. So what we want to do is, now that we know what the industry talking points are in these pieces of legislation, and they are reintroducing them, it is now the time to get in touch with our representatives and senators. And if we've already been in touch with them, we need to get in touch with them again, because these are new bills. So this is it's wiping off all the old bills, and we're now starting with a new slate. Now, the cell towers pose a public safety and fire hazard. In HR 6492, which I said was the Explore Act and was passed, we've got a very big problem. So first of all, is there a sufficient fall zone for public safety? Because there can be a collapse if there's structural failure. And we've been told by an engineer that with these electromagnetic frequencies, it produces vibrations. And the vibrations, if they're inside the building, and then you have vibrations outside the building from cell towers and inside the building from Wi-Fi equipment, then you're going to start seeing structural degradation and then eventually collapse, as we've been told. So in terms of fire hazards, the wireless towers don't just appear out of nowhere, okay? They are electrical installations. And in order for the wireless towers to function, they have to have fiber. So the idea that fiber costs too much to deploy, well, they need fiber in order for the wireless towers to be put in place. And we don't know whether they comply with electrical and building codes, and that's what they have to do. Now, if there is a fire and firefighters show up on the scene, they need to be very careful. They have to make sure that the power is cut on the cell towers. Otherwise, they stand to be electrocuted. And so a fire can just go on and on and on. And within an hour, and if you have heavy winds, you can get a real conflagration. People need time to escape, whether they're in the forest or otherwise. And it should not be close to homes, schools, or businesses. Now, California has had a lot of major fires, and they obviously had a major fire just recently. We don't know the cause of that yet, but in terms of other California major fires, the causes were they were caused by or contributed to by faulty telecommunications equipment. And the worst one was the one at Woolsey in 2018, and that caused $6 billion of damages. 100,000 acres were destroyed, and 295,000 people had to be evacuated, and there were 3 deaths. There was another tower, a 100-foot tower in Chula Vista, California, in 2021, and it was over a sports field at a school. The temperatures can reach up to 35,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 3 times the estimated temperature of the sun. When this tower caught on fire, it became molten plasma. So it just melted onto the bleachers. That's how dangerous these towers are. And as we were talking about 1648, which streamlined satellite launches, they will exponentially increase satellite launches and space debris, with 25,000 collision avoidance maneuvers already recorded for Starlink. from December 2022 to May 2023. Now, coupled with another bill that they had introduced last year and thankfully was not passed, would otherwise allow for unlimited satellite launches and requires the FCC to fast track commercial satellite approvals with licenses that almost never expire. So you can be sure that that's going to be reintroduced, and that's going to be unsustainable. Okay, so there are 3 bills right now that have been introduced. HR 339, introduced by Representative Crenshaw of Texas, to add wireless antennas on any structure, including buildings without consent of local government, tenants, teachers, or parents. HR 279 has been introduced by Representative Griffith of Virginia and that bill is designed to expand federal preemption over local government without consent by adding antennas to supposedly improve service. Now, HR 471 was introduced by Representative Westerman from Arkansas. And this is supposed to be a pilot program to use 5G to detect wildfires without regard to cell towers already having caused devastating wildfires. Now, HR 339 is supposed to streamline federal preemption. And what it would do is it would expand federal preemption under what is called a Section 6409 of the Spectrum Act of 2012. Section 6409 states that if you have an antenna on a cell tower, you can add unlimited more antenna, and local government cannot stop it. HR 339, which was just introduced, would expand Section 6409 to any structure. So if you have antennas on your building, they can put them on your building without having to ask you. So that's a bit onerous. Now, Charles had mentioned before that there's an FCC spectrum authorization bill, and we submitted at the national call to the Senate Commerce Committee at the hearing on February 18th, earlier this week, that's designed to increase spectrum. And we filed comments opposing spectrum authorization. And the reason for that is that given 6409 and the bill HR 339, any kind of increase in spectrum will allow more antennas to be placed on structures and on cell towers without your being able to say no. And so you can just imagine the tremendous amount of radiation that will be put out by that. Now, the other thing is that we stated that the only way that the FCC should increase its spectrum is if it complies with the 2021 DC Circuit Appellate Court order before it is authorized to deploy more spectrum. And in that case, it was shown that FCC had actual notice of biological effects within its wireless radiation limits for human exposure. There were 11,000 pages of scientific peer-reviewed studies in its docket. The court found that the FCC violated the Administrative Procedures Act because it never looked at the studies. It never formed a committee, and it relied on conclusory statements from the Food and Drug Administration that there's nothing to see here. And the FCC basically has ignored the court order. It is now 2025. So we filed those comments with the Senate Commerce Committee to point out the fact that the FCC is in violation of a court order. There is one bill that was introduced last year, which we fully support and is likely to be reintroduced. And that is 8082, Securing Local Communities' Input in Broadband Development Act. So what happened was that the FCC promulgated rules that overrode local government discretion on wireless antenna sightings. And that allowed the telecom industry to tell local government, your hands are tied, you can't do anything about it, we can put our cell towers wherever we want. There has been a long-standing rule in many federal courts for decades that requires that the telecom carrier must prove that there is a gap in phone service and that they're using the least intrusive means to fill that gap. That is that is not what the FCC rules limit the telecommunications carriers to. What they did is they reinterpreted the Telecommunications Act to basically say that you don't need a gap in service. You can basically put them anywhere where you feel you need to put them. So this bill would do away with those rules. And so we're looking to reintroduce them and to get a support and to get a Senate companion bill. So what can you do? One thing that is very important, and we've been doing this, and Charles and I have been doing this for over a year, and we've met with many federal representative staff and senatorial staff, is to speak out while we still can. And this is the time to do it because the bills are now being introduced. Whereas last Congress, we were caught behind the 8 ball. And so we were constantly behind the 8 ball. Now we're in front of it. And in order to continue to be in front of it, we need to schedule these meetings. So the very first thing is to call your US representative and 2 senators and ask for the telecom staffer. And you can also go to their website contact page. To find your federal electeds, call the Capitol switchboard operator at 202-225-3121, or you can find them at the link that I've indicated on the slide. Request a Zoom meeting to discuss telecom bills to bridge the broadband digital divide. You don't have to give them any more information than that. If they're looking for more information or they want a sense of the bills that we want to discuss, just let us know. We will provide you with that information. So you should set up these meetings along with the availability times for Charles and me. We will talk about the federal telecom bills. Charles takes the lead on that. And if you can email us at hello@thenationalcall.org, we will give you the availability times. And I publish them in our on our National Call email listserv. So if you are interested in being part of our listserv and you would like to get these notices, then definitely give us a holler at hello@thenationalcall.org.
Odette,
Yes.
let me just interrupt a moment. I think and this includes you, Charles, don't we also have an email link for the National Health Federation for people to contact us to organize these calls with our meetings with the representatives? I thought we had one as well. Why is it just mentioning the nationalcall.org instead of the NHF? Someone? Anyone?
I can answer that. As Odette mentioned, Scott, these meetings are being led by the National Health Federation, myself. So it's just that through her coalition, that's where the grassroots organizing is taking place. But you make a good point that the contact email address for NHF could be added too if anybody wants to contact NHF to start the process. So we certainly can add that email.
Thank you. Excuse the interruption, Odette, but it just seemed
No,
like
no, that's perfectly fine. That's a good question.
Okay.
So basically what we've been
Continue.
doing is we've been doing the administrative stuff in terms of scheduling the calls, and that's why we have the National Call email, because I'm the one who puts together the Zoom meetings and coordinates with everyone and gives out the Zoom link. So it's basically just an administrative convenience, but Charles usually leads the meetings. So NHF usually leads the meetings on this. And so you can contact us with the names and emails of the staffers so that we can send out a Zoom link for the meeting. And the question of is 5G safe? I don't know if we have time for this, but I was thinking I would go through a little bit of a chronology on this so that people understand what the stakes are in terms of the biological effects and how people can be personally affected by this.
Yeah, we have time, Odette, if you want to go through this
okay.
quickly. Yeah, sorry, I meant to answer you.
Oh, sure. So, okay. So there are adverse health and environmental impacts and biological effects. I already spoke about the 1971 Naval Medical Research Center study, which found 23 chronic diseases linked to microwave radiation, which is 5G, as well as regular RF radiation. Going fast forward to 1993, I don't know if people remember Larry King Live, and perhaps I'm dating myself, but there was a TV broadcast on Larry King Live, and he was interviewing a man whose wife died of brain cancer. I believe the man gave his wife a cell phone for her birthday and died from it. So there was an MRI that showed the tumor site was exactly where she held her cell phone. When that was broadcast, the telecom stocks the next day declined. In 1995, and in order for the telecom industry to do damage control, the Wireless Technology Research Organization was formed, and it was a nonprofit, and it was funded by industry at the tune of $28.5 million. And it was overseen by the peer review board at Harvard School of Public Health, the FDA, EPA, and many other agencies. And what they found were biological effects and they were potentially hazardous to human health. And that's when the telecom industry got in gear. And for the 1996 Telecom Act, they put in Section 704, which actually does not give you any legal right to claim injuries, personal injury from wireless radiation. In 2000, there was a major telecom carrier that commissioned a study that found cancer, leukemia, neurological disorders, and cognitive impairment. That study was not published. It was leaked out, and that's why we have it. Then in 2019, there was the FCC docket, which we just talked about, has 11,000 pages of scientific peer-reviewed studies showing harm within its limits. And actually, in 2019, the FCC ignored it, and in 2021, the court found against the FCC. In 2019, there was a hearing that Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut held with the telecom industry, with telecom executives, and he asked them if there was any pre-market testing of 5G, and they said none that we know of. So he said, we're flying blind here as far as health and safety is concerned. Then in 2020, the New Hampshire Commission found harm to people and the environment. And since January of 2023, there have been 8 case studies of 5G towers and rooftop antennas, which all showed harm: headaches, tinnitus, abnormal fatigue, sleep disturbances, burning skin, trouble concentrating. Now, with respect to radiation absorption for a child compared to an adult, as you see, this is a top view of a head. And on the left side, you see a little yellow spot. That is where they're holding a cell phone. So in order to determine the amount of radiation that's absorbed in the brain at various stages of your life, a 5-year-old child absorbs most of it in the brain, 10-year-old child a little bit less, and an adult much less. But it still gets absorbed into the brain. This is a chart of neurobehavioral symptoms near cell towers. If you look at the chart with the orange bars, show that the distance between the people and the towers is less than 10 meters. And as you see, there are a lot of symptoms that are associated. And then you can see that the bars gradually go down to where you have black, which is greater than 300 meters. Now, even 300 meters is producing effects. But as you can see, the closer you are, the more effects it produces, and therefore distance is your friend. Now, there has been a study that shows that in any given population, 30% of the population is afflicted from radiation poisoning. We now call this electromagnetic radiation syndrome. So people who are afflicted with radiation poisoning, we call electromagnetic radiation syndrome. And about 1% are severely disabled, where they are unable to work or live in areas that have this radiation. And the constellation of symptoms includes headaches, nausea, vomiting, tinnitus, hearing loss, heart arrhythmia, tachycardia, neurological disorders, oxidative stress, immune dysfunction, ADHD, and damage to the blood-brain barrier. So with every wireless installation, with respect to public safety, there's no pre-market testing for safe levels of emissions. There's no monitoring of cumulative exposure. And the FCC states on its website that it does not have the personnel to monitor the amount of radiation that comes off these cell towers. And also for cell towers, I believe it's below 200 feet, they do not have an inventory of those. And what are the 5G towers? Now they're all like 30 feet, 50 feet. And so they have no database on that. And of course, there's no safety zone for either tower collapse or fire. The other thing it's important to note with respect to whether this radiation is safe, that the industry itself characterizes wireless radiation as a pollutant. It is in their device protection plans. So you can just check to see their protection plans, and they disclaim any losses or injury from it. Insurance companies, which really don't have any skin in this game, are saying objectively that they will not insure for personal injury because of the high risk of personal injury claims, and 5G is off the leash. So there are some sources, and Children's Health Defense has stop5g.org, helping communities to effectively oppose the proposed installations. And they provide resources and consultation to help mount a successful campaign. There are also sources at Environmental Health Trust, especially Congress, at ehtrust.org/Congress. We also have our resources and advocacy in action. That is where we post our comments to the committees in Congress. And you can also contact me at owilkens@wiredbroadband.org or hello@thenationalcall.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Odette. I guess it's time for questions then, if you're finished with your presentation. Yep. Okay. The first hand I saw up was Charles Froman, so I'm going to give the floor to Charles.
Thank you, Scott, and fantastic presentation, Odette. And I just wanted to show folks an example of what happens if you agree to help us schedule meetings with your members of Congress. So a couple of days ago, we met with the vice chair of the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Communications, a Georgia Republican. And the interesting context for some of these meetings is that even with his neighbor, Buddy Carter of Georgia, Buddy Carter introduced one of the worst bills for us last year. But when RFK Kennedy was meeting with Trump after he survived his nomination process, one of the 5 politicians there to congratulate him, along with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Senator Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, was Buddy Carter. So at some point, these conservatives are going to come our way. They just don't know any better. They're really awakened by the pandemic to be skeptical about pharma's Frankenshots, but they're not quite there yet on our issue. So what I do for every meeting is I curate our presentation based on the politician's background and committee assignments. So Mr. Allen is a builder. So we're going to raise things from our world that will connect to him, like the growing market of building biologists. Wireless experts on this call know what a wonderful new market building biology is. So we need to, mention that to a former builder. We're going to, in each meeting, talk about the community broadband that already exists in their district. And in that part of the conversation, the staffer for the politician said, "Oh yeah, we're pro fiber in this office, and we know about a boondoggle from AT&T who promised wireless and didn't deliver." So their experience is bringing them our way. They just don't know enough to say no to telecom when this politician here and this document here is the author of the spectrum auction bill that Ted Cruz is trying to insert into the budget reconciliation bill that's going to make it pass more easily. So this is our short-term goal, to stop this guy's bill. So, this will be about how long it'll be. We'll bring in, his former Ag Committee membership to talk about the Farm Bill. And again, in today's invitation, you'll see the link in agenda number 2 to our new state campaign. We need to educate our state politicians, not just our federal ones. And with that, I'll stop share. And Odette, talk about that real quick, about how we're almost there with some of these politicians who on the surface are our enemy. But in the course of the meeting, the staffers are open-minded. It's just going to take some repetition to get them to turn our way. Has that been your feeling too from these meetings?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And we've met with probably about 100 federal legislative staff, and many of them have never heard anything about this. And their primary concern, especially among Republicans, is what are the health risks? So they are very concerned about health. And I think that once they make the connection that there's chronic disease along with electromagnetic radiation, that's going to really awaken them. And I think the fact that in President Trump's executive order, he's stating that part of the purpose of the commission is to study chronic disease with respect to children, as it may be also caused by electromagnetic radiation. That is a game changer for us. And that is something that we can laudably refer to in our meetings. And they're very receptive. They are very receptive when we talk about the health risks. So we do have an in there, but we do need to have constituents. And again, if I know that a number of people on this call have already been involved in these meetings with the legislators. We do need to have now new meetings in order to follow up with those people. And sometimes they leave. So we need to re-educate some of the new staff there. But there's also new bills, and we have to alert them to these new bills. And this is a great opportunity because we're at the start of the new Congress, and we're already tracking with the bills that have now been introduced.
Thank you, Odette. I will take the questions. I'm sorry, I've lost track of who's next. I think it's Aaron Ford, but I'm not certain. Is that?
No, it's Janet Drew.
Is it Janet Drew? Okay, Janet, you're up to ask your question, please.
First of all, to put your availability, so when we contact our reps, we've got it. And second, is there data on antennas associated with water tanks and water towers?
I'm sorry, is there what associated with water towers?
Data about the possible effects of having antennas on water tanks and water towers.
Yeah, I haven't seen any reports, but I have heard that it changes the structure of water, and that can also produce oxidative stress and cancer and DNA damage. So, but I'm not an expert on that, and I haven't seen any data on that, but that's what I've heard.
Can you put your schedule?
We don't have the schedule yet. I am going to be putting the schedule. I don't have the schedule yet because Charles and I have to coordinate.
Yeah, I think the better thing is just to send that email to express your interest in organizing a meeting with your politicians, and then we'll give you the schedule then. So send that email to us first to express your interest. That'll start the process.
I talked to my local rep today, and she's supposed to be bringing it to Michael Metz, Collins tech person. So I'm, looking for a kind of date. I'm hoping.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'll have that for you today, Janet. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet, for that. So Sharon, I think you're up next. Sharon Ward. Ask you to
Scott,
unmute.
I'm actually next, Scott.
You're
Larry, correct?
next, Larry?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Go.
Larry is next.
Then Larry,
Uh,
you go. You go ahead.
And Charles asked me to comment on the experience we had here in North Carolina and teaming up with them and meeting with representatives from the offices or our senators. And that dialogue went well. I don't know what the long-term impact of it is, but and I was asked to contact Rick Hudson, who's from District 9, a representative who's chairing the one of the new communications committees. I can't remember the name of the committee, but I talked to one of his staffers, emailed my request for a meeting, and it was sort of like, oh, we're in the middle of just kicking off the year and get back to me later. And I haven't followed up on it yet, but I realized I'm just 10 miles outside his district and I don't vote for him. So I was thinking about contacting one of my friends who is in his district to see if he could contact him. So that might be.
That's excellent, Larry. That's excellent. That would be great. Now, also, we do need to meet with Ted Budd again. And we need to meet with your other senator as well. We need to meet with both of your senators and also with your representative as well. So if you can start scheduling that, and it would be great for your friend to join us on the meetings with the senators. And yeah, that would be wonderful. Do you think you might be able to get them interested in doing something next week?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay.
And the guy I know is Hakeem Isler. He's a martial arts instructor and also a prepper down in Fayetteville. So I think that's in his district. So
wonderful, wonderful, Larry. Excellent.
And just one comment. Just because you're barely out of a congressional district doesn't mean the politician will take a meeting from you. They may not. So it's smart to get actual constituents, but sometimes they'll take that meeting. So I would go ahead and try as opposed to not trying. And as far as the effect of past meetings, it's like anything else. It takes persistence and repetition until they buy. And at some point, if there's an opportunity to primary them, you get rid of them. But you'll never get a friend until you try, and it takes a lot of effort. Unfortunately, it's kind of a hassle.
yeah, I noted that Hudson was touting how excited he was to roll out 5G and everything. So I think we have an uphill battle there. But yeah. So.
Yeah, but if we frame it in terms of chronic disease,
yeah,
and electromagnetic radiation, I think it's a game changer. It's a game changer for us.
I agree. The fact that it's on the Health Commission now, I think, is a good thing. So yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
we have some other questions, so let's move on.
Just real quick,
Let's
and real
move
quick.
on.
Yeah, these staffers don't know anything, so they're carrying the water of telecom. Once we lobby them and educate them, that opens their mind to reconsidering. Sorry, Scott.
Okay.
Thanks.
No, sorry to interrupt you. All right. This is,
Michael is the next person.
pardon?
Michael is the next person.
Well, okay, Michael, I didn't know you were next because the other name showed up first on my screen before you, but go ahead, take it away, Michael.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, good. I was just wondering, with all of these antennas going up, who and how are the authorities who are putting these antennas up measuring the amount of power coming from the antennas? And are there any safety features on the antennas to make sure that they do not go above the FCC levels that are supposed to be considered, according to the industry, as safe? Because from all indications, when measurements have been taken, they are much higher than what is allowable. And that's why I think people have to go to their own health departments and also tell them that they need to measure. Health departments have to go in and measure how much radiation is coming off of those antennas.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, the FCC states on its website that it doesn't have the personnel to go around and take measurements of wireless emissions. it's on a case-by-case basis that a locality will measure the wireless emissions, unless it's explicitly noted and who's going to do it and when it's going to be done and if it's going to be announced to the carrier or not announced, and if it'll just be an ad hoc thing. It's really on a locality by locality basis. Also, the amount of radiation the FCC allows, I believe, is 10 million microwatts per meter squared. And that's huge. The building biologists say that 10 is safe. 10, 1-0. And yet the FCC allows 10 million microwatts per meter squared. So even if they do measure it, it's extraordinarily high.
Well, I know the
Odette, if I can add to
United
that,
States,
Michael, if I could show you one thing, in our new draft campaign for the states, let me just hide this mini controls to answer your question. You'll see in our 9 recommendations for the states, one of them is number 3, to get states monitoring going of both radiation and output and itemization of tower location. So the states are going to have to require it.
because the other thing is, which Odette brought up, which is very important, and I agree with, and that is the extremely high level that the FCC has placed, which is, of course, 100-fold above what even China allows, and 1,000-fold higher than what a place like Bulgaria allows of exposure to radiation. So I just don't comprehend why the United States is allowing these extremely high levels when they know that it causes cancer. That's why I mentioned about health studies, because health studies are not allowed when the FCC and the industry was questioned by Congress, and they said, "Have you done any health studies?" And they said no. And Congress was befuddled. They said, "Why haven't you done health studies?" And the reason is because an actual health study involves a double-blind situation like they did with the WHO with rats, because we already know the biological studies have proven without a doubt that this radiation causes cancer, and the CDC
Right, exactly,
proved
Michael.
it a long
And
time
actually,
ago.
the industry already has studies that show that this causes this has high risk of cancer. I went through that in my presentation. They know. So they're saying there have been no independent studies done. Well, perhaps not on 5G, but certainly on wireless radiation, and the wireless industry knows. Okay. Sharon,
No,
Sharon
I'm.
is, I think.
May I actually clarify this, because this is my area of expertise? So a lot of the things that you're saying are things that I've been saying since 1990 to Congress. I've been on the Hill and many hills through states as well. But this is my area of expertise: radio frequency, microwave radiation, bioeffects. We have many human studies. Human studies can be done both in the lab and as epidemiology, as I can explain if you wish, but I don't have to. It is not true that Senator Blumenthal qualified these as, concern about health or safety. That was not true. He did not qualify it or describe it in any way in the hearing. He left it completely open, knowing exactly what would happen. People would misinterpret that to mean, of course, that there were no health studies or bioeffect studies, which was absolutely false. He knew that, and he set it up just that way. And that's why it was a completely deceptive hearing. So yes, we have many human studies, Michael, both from the lab and in epidemiology. There are ways to get around those human ethical problems, and researchers have done that. So
Yeah, I'm aware of that, Susan. Yeah, I've read all those studies, not all of them, obviously, but I presented a stack of over 12 inches to the health department in San Francisco of those studies as well. So no, I understand that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of just kind of like trickery being done in terms of language and
Sure
playing
is.
around things.
That's the first line of offense. Yeah. And if
Yes.
and I don't know if you were, I mean, Charles asked me to raise my hand. I can stop speaking. I can speak later
Well,
about it.
No, no,
won't
it's
talk
it's
anymore,
okay
but thank you. Thank you.
for you to talk. It's all right. It was an appropriate time, even though it was a little bit out of order, but I don't care. Michael, were you done with your question?
Yes, I am. Thank you,
Okay.
Scott.
All right.
And thank you, Odette, and thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Well, you're already there, Veritas. So, do you have any
I'm Susan.
do you have any question for Odette?
Well, I mean, there are many things that are misrepresented here because people don't look at the science, the law, the policy accurately. Now, I really appreciate, I mean, we are so fortunate to have RFK Jr. now. And fortunate that he uses the language of chronic disease, as Odette has said. This gives us a huge in. But let's be sure that we understand. Section 704 of the Telecom Act said nothing whatsoever about injury, as you claimed it did, about health, as you claimed it did. Nothing. Okay? The language is not there. It doesn't exist. It's just a false claim. It was a false rumor from the start. And if you wanted, I could tell you the whole story of how the rumor got started, right? It got started in, by industry attorneys who were misrepresenting the law to public officials.
That's not correct.
Yeah. Now, are there precedents?
I'm sorry, Susan. That's not correct. It is the federal courts that have interpreted environmental effects to mean health effects. And in the Cellular Task Force case in 2000, environmental effects was seen to incorporate health effects. So
that's actually not true. That is actually not true. I know the language precisely.
I saw the language, and that is exactly true.
It's not. I'm so sorry. Please pull out the exact sentence from that footnote of Oyster Bay 2000. Pull it out. Go get the language and show it to us. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. That's not true. They said
that's not correct. I'm sorry.
It's not true, Odette.
Okay, so
I know the law. I know the exact language.
Please.
Listen, I won't.
You have to shout.
Appropriate.
No, it's not true. The language says nothing about injury.
It's
that
not.
2000 case. Now, please let me speak. Would you just let me finish a sentence, Odette? Here's what it says in the footnote. Here's what the footnote says. It says that we considered that environmental effects also include health concerns. Health concerns are not health effects. Concerns are not effects. And if people had simply understood this from the beginning, of course concerns are non-substantive. Of course they don't count. Of course he could consider that judge who's now dead could consider them preempted. All right? But not actual health effects. Okay? And this is what we've been telling. I've been telling Congress the truth since that time. But when people take this other stance that goes along with what is a rumor that's bent, it bends the language and misrepresents the language, we lose. The other term is risk. Okay, it is not true that when there's risk, there is a right to know or a right to, participate in the decision-making process. It's absolutely false. And the reason is that a risk is a possibility, a chance, a numerical chance, an unnamed, usually numerical chance that some untoward outcome may occur. All right, it's not harm. It's the opposite of harm. So when we couch things in terms of risk, what we're admitting, what we're conceding is that there's a lack of knowledge, that we don't know how much. We don't know whether there's harm or not. That's false. We do know that there's harm because we've got about 20,000 biological studies. It's an area of expertise, right? And so, I've analyzed these studies quantitatively for 35 years. It's important that we speak accurately. So when we say, yes, there is harm, and here's how we know there's harm, and yes, we can substantiate there's harm because of this, 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 and this, then we have a chance of winning. The moment that we concede it's merely risk, we lose. We must lose, and here's why. Earlier, Charles, I believe it was you who said that, that big telecom is almost as big as big pharma. I always argue that it's bigger. And I've looked at the money, and, big telecom comes to us through the International Telecommunications Union under the UN, which is hugely funded by Verizon, by Sprint, by the US government, by the Japanese government. You wouldn't believe how it's funded. It's massive. Now, big pharma is massive because it also includes big ag, big food, big chemical, right? So I don't know who's bigger, but they're both. It's possible the telecom is even bigger under the UN funding for it, and that funding was specifically for under the UN environmental program depopulation, which in about the year 2000, the late 1990s, was the number one objective of the UN environmental program: lower human population. And they actually said within their documents, we have found the funding to carry out this program of depopulation, right?
Okay, so Susan, thank you, but we have other people with questions. We need to permit Odette time to respond to this because she's our featured guest speaker today, and she has that right. And then we move on to the others. Odette, do you have anything? Thank you, by the way, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to pass on that.
Okay, Odette, you have any further
No,
response?
I'm going to pass on that.
Okay, perfectly fine. Dr. John, would you like to weigh in on?
Actually, Sharon Ward is next.
Okay, you know what, Odette, you're the guest speaker, but I'm the moderator, so let's not, second guess me on whom I'm calling up. I'm calling the order I see them, and it may be wrong, but this is it. Dr. John, you're next.
Yeah, Odette. Thank you for the presentation. I've seen those scans of brains before concerning cell phones. My question is concerning all these Bluetooth devices that are out there. Have you seen any studies concerning what kind of damage the Bluetooth devices are also doing to the brain or other body parts?
Well, I haven't seen any studies, but the Bluetooth also has electromagnetic radiation, so it wouldn't be. It would still be as close to the brain, and so I would expect that there would still be a concentration of electromagnetic radiation going into the brain. So it's going right through your ear, right? So it's right next.
Well, some are in the ear, some are outside the ear. Plus, we've got connective devices all over the place, connected to TV, connect to this. So it seems like everything now is wireless, as opposed to, at least before, you had a wire if you wanted to connect it to your cell phone. But now you can't even do that with some of the newer units. You have to use a Bluetooth device. So I'm just wondering if there was anything out there that was showing the type of damage. Because sometimes I have patients and I tell them about it, but there's no study I can point to showing the possibility of the damage that the Bluetooth itself is doing to them. So
right. I wish I had this. I wish I had studies of that. I haven't looked at that. I'm primarily concentrating on cell towers.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Jennifer Mansler, you're up.
Thanks, Odette and Charles. My question is about the FCC. It seems to me, and I've seen Brendan Carr in lots of interviews, the focus is not on our issue. It's not on health. It's not on wireless radiation as a toxin, as a pollutant. It's on spectrum. It's on whether media companies are representing the best interests of the people, free speech, First Amendment rights, those types of things. This issue needs to be at another agency. What can we do to move it to the FDA, the EPA, and actually regulate it for the toxin, the poison, the pollutant that it is? Because the FCC is only concerned with spectrum and, media companies and free speech. So that's the big issue I see. I don't see them ever regulating it. If it stays there, can RFK do anything about that?
Want me to
That's
take it
my
first?
question.
Yeah, why don't you take it? Mhm.
So at the very least, in our national campaign that I'll show here, among the recommendations we make is, let's see here, EPA down at the bottom. Um, Here it is. We recommend bringing the money back to EPA. So one of our talking points is that after the top scientists at EPA back in the 1980s, as Odette can correct me on the timeline, found that the wireless radiation harm was biological. That is, it wasn't just thermal, which is FCC's claim that unless the wireless device heats your skin, there's no harm. No, the harm is invisible and you can't feel it. It's biological. And EPA started long-term harm studies for wireless. And then in 1996, they were defunded, which I think to everyone looking at that knows that's suspicious. Why would they cut off funding when the top scientists found serious harm here? So if we could bring the money back to EPA to do its job, that would be one area to pull oversight from the FCC over to the EPA. And plus, if RFK is going to look at EMR in his chronic disease commission, he's got FDA under him, and FDA already paid $30 million for the National Toxicology Program study that found the highest level of evidence for wireless. That is clear evidence of cancer and DNA damage, but FDA ignored that study. And now NTP has announced a discontinuation of such studies. So I think in those two areas, we can see oversight or good science at least moving to those two other agencies outside of FCC. Odette?
That's fine. That's a good explanation.
Okay, thank you for that, Charles. Aaron
Hey,
McDowell.
Charles.
Aaron?
Hello. Okay,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the lively discussion. I think it's important to hear everything that everybody has to offer. I think clearly we are all on the same side. So open discourse is so welcomed after so much censorship. So I thank everybody for coming forward with everything that you've learned and that you're willing to share. I'm deeply appreciative. I suffer like many people. I had an acute onset, and that is something that I'm curious about is how people come to these meetings. How, what brought them here? Was it a chronic injury? Was it an acute injury? Because mine is acute, and I think that might be a little different than some chronic, although the symptoms and everything else, the sequelae, that all pans out kind of the same, more or less. But if it is something if the radiation is dosage dependent, that could be an issue. Is it gender dependent? We don't know. Who's keeping track of who's becoming injured? Where are the statistics on all of this stuff? As far as monitoring, I just want to address a couple of points, and I'm sorry if I'm all over the place, but I was trying to take notes as Odette was speaking and Susan was speaking and Charles as well. As far as monitoring, up at Rocky River High School, there was a fire in 2019. They did evacuate the street behind the tower. The tower started leaning. They did shut off the electricity, but there's a lot of times there's capacitors that are on the poles, and so even though you shut off the electricity, they're still electrified. So that's an issue. So we had to have a neighboring police department come and help evacuate the street behind the tower as it started leaning. It was a big pole. I was gone for about a year. I had to flee my home. I couldn't take it anymore. The symptoms were so bad. I came back home. We now have a cancer situation in my family. So I can't say the cause 100%. A cause and effect is always a tricky thing. I think benzene, we can now say, actually causes acute myeloid leukemia. But it's tough to say cause and effect. So correlation, but all of this needs to be investigated more thoroughly. We have to be able to talk about health. I've heard some people refer to it as being a gag order. So I appreciate what Susan was explaining, because when I hear things like everybody, is it true? Where did it come from? You want to source it out. You know, so is there a gag order? Is there not a gag order? So I think I understand a little bit better um, the terminology and the way things come about. And then that way, you know, because otherwise we don't want to promote uh, the wrong ideas and what we're capable of doing. You know, we're going to have to study, the health effects need to be looked at. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place right now. But the health effects, they need to be looked at regardless of, the words on paper, yeah, they're a law, but words on paper, people are dying, people are sick. When do we start using common sense and figure this out? So I'm hopeful with RFK, and I'm one of the optimistic, cautiously, but optimistic. So anyways, I'm kind of rambling. One other thing I wanted to mention is the Bluetooth. So when I turn off my phone, there have been times when the Bluetooth has stayed on and I use my RF meter. I rarely use my phone, but when I have to, sometimes when I turn my phone off, I still feel very symptomatic. And I've used the Safe and Sound Pro 2 meter next to it. And if the Bluetooth doesn't shut off, it still is giving that signal. So so that question had come up, what about Bluetooth? So if you have a meter, you can verify that yourself. You can check it yourself. So even though you put it in airplane mode, if that Bluetooth was not shut off, it will still, there's still a signal that can be detected with the meter. And it's in the high range, like the extremely high range. So it's still creating that signal. You're not turning it off completely. So yeah, I would agree that there would be damage still being done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Odette?
I apologize, I rambled. Thank you.
Oh, that's fine. Odette, did you have a response?
No, that was, just for
Okay.
comment. That's
Okay,
fine.
understood. Lisa Sheehan, I think you can speak next if you like. I can't really see you very well. Did you disappear? Okay, James Ford, let's go with you. You need to.
Can you not hear me?
Well,
Hello?
we moved on because you weren't speaking, but it's okay.
God,
It's
really?
okay. Go.
No, it's
It's
not.
okay.
I'm
Go
so
ahead and talk.
No,
I'm
I'm
sure
really
James won't mind.
dysregulated and
What's your question, Lisa?
I really apologize, but I have like almost no regulation capacity anymore. And it's all because of this. But
Well, it's
so my
understandable.
question is, I need to find, this is all great. It's going to take forever. Now that he's in and he's actually talking about it, when he was campaigning, he said we need set aside areas. I need to know who's organizing on that, because that's all I care about. I want people inundating HHS with requests for zones and relocation assistance ASAP. And maybe a lot of other people can still function enough where they don't want to have to do that. That's not me. I have a meningioma, and if I don't get some hope here, I'm not even treating it. So if anybody, I'll leave my email in here. And if anybody knows of any organizations that are working on that issue, demanding that we get some place for the critically injured to live as soon as possible. And RFK knows that we need this, and he's for us to have this. We just need to get vocal about it. So.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Odette, did you want to respond to that, or Charles?
Yes, Lisa, I'm so sorry to hear that. And there's a couple of things. At the National Call, we have weekly meetings because we're putting together guidelines that we're going to then distribute to the federal agencies on accommodation. And so you just gave me the idea of relocation assistance. We didn't include that. We haven't included that yet. So we can.
What was that comment that just went on my screen? Wow. Entitlements disgust me? What is that even? Holy crap.
All right. Well, thank you.
Well,
Well,
that
let me add
wasn't
to
by
that.
Odette. That was by someone else in the audience. So,
Yeah, I
It-
just
it-
don't understand it and offensive. What is that saying? I don't deserve to live because I can't work.
uh,
Maybe I'm taking it the wrong way, but wow.
I just want to say I've been setting up places, refuges for people with electromagnetic radiation difficulties. So if
Yeah,
you have the
I know
activity,
places exist, but they don't exist for the poor on SSI with
they
comorbid.
sure do. They sure do. Because I, for one, have set up where nobody has to pay anything. That was my point, because I was just in your place.
I live in a major city because I couldn't, nobody will take a voucher who, I found a place in a rural town with no signals, and I could feel my body come to life, and they wouldn't rent to me. And, I'm living here just waiting to die because there's nowhere else for me to live, so, but, I'll drop my email if anybody has anything that they want to send me.
thank you.
Like I said, I'm sorry. I can't even leave the house because of what it does to me, and it makes me look like I'm a psycho or a hateful person, and it's just, I was never like this.
Well, you don't
I'm in
deserve
Boston.
it.
If somebody
You don't deserve it, and there are ways to handle it, and hopefully this will happen under the new administration, or certainly with RFK Jr. Let's work towards that. Thank you for sharing that with us, and I'm sorry I moved on after you were trying to speak.
Everyone. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, as soon as I finish this, I'm sorry. Thank you for listening.
Oh, no, thank you very much. James, I'm sorry I left you hanging there. James Ford. You're next. Yeah, all right. Do I need to get you to unmute?
I'm hearing you, James.
Yeah. James, if you
Not to move on, and then he can figure out
yeah, well,
his
James,
voice.
work on your speaker. You need to unmute yourself. I can't seem to unmute you from here. So, okay, then the next one was either Jay Newman or Dr. Dory. I lost track there. Is it Jay?
I think it's Jay.
Jay, go ahead.
Thank you. Phenomenal work you guys are doing. Uh, One thing is, I really noticed right at the outset, Charles, with your presentation, that you're brilliantly addressing the fact that change is happening. There's no point of trying to say, hey, 5G bad, kill it. And so you're addressing specific areas to massage things that are logical and practical to, mitigate the damage and just work with the progress. I would encourage you and Scott to maybe elaborate a little for the audience here on how donating to NHF can help directly facilitate the work you guys are all doing, including the work that you're doing with Odette. I'd also like to ask how a copy of these two main presentations that Charles and Odette have put up here can be obtained and shared with others. And lastly, this comment that was made at the outset by Odette that 70 bills proposed by the industry and only 4 passed. Did I understand that correctly? That's staggering to me, and two things come to mind is number one, asking what has been working, because obviously a lot of your joint work here and the related community is having an impact. As you said, we're not behind the 8 ball, or that we're ahead. What's been working and how do we facilitate that? And number two, it seems to me that that simple fact alone could be the number one thing on the poster to go to the public and the legislators to get more cooperation by saying, look at the imbalance of what they're trying to do versus what even, regulators are willing to allow. So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Absolutely, Jay. The first thing is our winning formula has been to go from legislator to legislator to legislator. And that's how we learn about their particular stance, whether, and also if they've introduced one of those bills. And as a matter of fact, we found a constituent for one of the bad bills that was introduced last year that we wanted to make sure would not go for a vote on the House floor. And I think, we may have helped to stop that. I like to think that we helped to stop that. And so we got the constituent on. The office of that legislator was very, very interested. But the only way for us to know about that is for us to meet with them. And once we meet with them, we get to know them, they get to know us, we give them the information because they're only hearing from the telecom industry. And so they have to hear from a lot of us. We have 535 people to contact, and we've contacted maybe about 100. We have another 435 to go. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, but it's doable. And even if we just have meetings, a few meetings every week, it accumulates. Does that answer your question, Jay?
Somewhat. I had multiple
that
facets.
answers part of it, but I guess I'm going to need to answer the first part of it, which was how donating to NHF helps. Well, one, it keeps our lobbyist in the trenches, keeps Charles Froman working. He can't do this for free. He's got a family to feed and bills to pay and all of that. So we pay him a monthly stipend. It's not nearly what he's worth. Thanks to Charles, he's gracious enough to let us skate by on that amount that we pay him. But there's our magazine, there's our other efforts, our outreach efforts and the like to reach people and acquaint them with this problem. So that's I appreciate you saying that, Jay. That's why it's important to donate to the NHF. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I mean, there's also conducting these forums.
True. Well, that's all part and parcel of it. There's the event that we're putting on that's not being held for free. And we have a lot going on. Attending the Codex meetings is very costly, especially if it's overseas. It can cost up to $2 or $3 grand, depending upon whether it's Asia or Europe. And we're working on things there, albeit not on the electromagnetic radiation front, because Codex does not cover that. But it's funny how the subject will come up from time to time with Codex delegates who are ministry people from their own health ministry departments. And so it does have a crossover effect, even at Codex. And people start looking at National Health Federation. Hopefully they get beyond the Wikipedia smear job that's been done on us. And they look more in depth and they start following our lead. The problem is at Codex, then the next meeting you go to, it's a new person there and you have to start all over again. So I've been going to these meetings for 25 years this year, and I probably have the most experience of anyone at the Codex meeting, except for maybe one or two individuals. So I keep getting confronted with new faces. Anyway, I'm going off target now. So thank you, Jay. Was there anything else to your questions that we need to answer?
Well, in this subject, maybe you can elaborate just a tiny bit, or Charles can, on how donations to NHF help NHF support Odette's work. And number two, I had asked about how to get copies of the PDFs that Charles and Odette provided.
Okay, Charles, you want to answer that?
Odette can talk about her needs herself for the coalition, but Scott answered our question in terms of NHF. Lobbying costs money. So if folks like what we're doing, we will appreciate any support you can share.
Thank you for that, Charles. Thank you, Jay. And I should point out to everyone that Jay's a member of our NHF advisory board and has been for quite some while. The next Next person, Dory, I guess, or Hank Allen, Dory. I think Dr. Dory is next. We lost Sharon Ward. She had to take off, but
Yes, thank you. Thank you to everyone for this really important call. And I had a question and a comment. I think it was Aaron mentioned the Bluetooth, and I want a clarification. I also keep my phone on airplane mode, use it as infrequently as possible. And is Aaron saying that unless you specifically turn off the Bluetooth, it's still on, like even if you have airplane mode on? Is that correct?
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
Okay. Couple things. One is it should go off. You assume it goes off. Most of the time it does go off. Once in a blue moon, it may not go off. So
Oh.
if you are symptomatic and you're still feeling symptoms, which is how I discovered this, and I was like, what in the Sam hell? So I had my meter sitting there. Again, I don't use my phone a lot, so it doesn't take much to set me off when I turn on a cell phone. I usually get a sharp pain in the head. So that's when I first discovered it. Then I discovered it with my husband's, what do you call it, notepad. And one other weird thing, excuse me, that I find, I don't use Wi-Fi in my house, although I have a router that has a Wi-Fi that's turned off. I use an Ethernet cable, and I've manually shut everything off, and I've, spoken to AT&T, my carrier, very quickly. I have come home from being away, and my Wi-Fi has been turned on, not by me. My husband doesn't, and my husband doesn't use it, so it's a magical box. It really, truly is a box. Okay.
There's a lot of weirdness going on.
There's weirdness. So check if you have a meter. I would recommend. I mean, most of the time it does go off. Most of the time it does, but you might want to just take a peek every now and then and make sure that it is turning off.
Thank you. And a suggestion for anyone who cannot easily get a landline, I have a Magic Jack, which connects into a wired computer, and it costs $50, and you can call anywhere in the nation, unlimited. So per year. So that's one thing. And the second thing for Lisa, there's a man named Jerry Day. He has a community. It's on the other side of the country. I was also interested. Ken, you need to mute your microphone. Unless you said something relevant. I don't know. It's not expensive. He will help you. He's very kind. I cannot access his phone number right now. But I found him on the Corbett Report. So if you go to the Corbett Report, do a search in the search engine for Jerry Day, his interviews will come up, and he gives all his contact info. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dory, for that. Hank, you're up next.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, Odette, Charles, everybody, thank you so much for putting this on. I've been around the house doing stuff, listening, so I got one ear to the Zoom while we're doing this. Susan, it was great to see you again. It's been a while. I'm glad to see her asking questions. Love Susan. So I'm listening to Lisa's story, and then I heard one of the guys had a gold thing in the background asking me about Bluetooth headphones and all kinds of stuff. So I'll try to make this as quick as possible, but mainly I'm directing my comment towards Lisa, who's dying right now or having a really hard time. So I've been sick almost in the place where Lisa is for 19 years. And I got it really bad. I mean, horrible. Hospitalized, heart palpitations, AFib, headaches, couldn't drive down the street. They put a cell tower behind my house, 600 yards behind my house out here in Idaho, and it almost killed me. And I've been searching and searching and searching for answers. I knew I was never sick before. And then I got so sick to where, dirty electricity from the electrical wiring in my house was making me sick. And thank God I found, for me personally, what was making the EMF react to my body. And so I'm a retired general building contractor, remodeled my house 19 years ago, and I had mold inside the house. And I breathed in the mold. And I guess most of you probably already know this, but mold or yeast, when it's exposed to RF radiation from cell towers, Wi-Fi, cell phones, Bluetooth, you name it, it feels like it's being attacked. And as its defense mechanism, it releases mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are a biotoxin that messes a lot of people up, messes me up. We're finding here in the Treasure Valley in Idaho, I have two really good friends that are building biologists. And once they rolled out the 5G through here, all kinds of people are getting sick. And they're calling and go, oh my God, just like Lisa, I am sick as can be. And what all the building biologists, plus what I found personally, is they have mold in their house. And when they turn on the 5G or you have an uptick in the RF radiation, that mold gets pissed off and starts releasing biotoxins. And as you get toxic, you get brain fog, you get heart palpitations, you get lethargic, joint pain, you name it. So I was on the EMF summit back about 9 months ago, and they had a Dr. Neil Nathan that was giving a talk, and he was out of Northern California, and he wrote a book. It's called Toxic. It's on Amazon, costs about $20. I put a link to it in the chat here, and I read that book and found a local doctor. His name is David Palacio, because Neil Nathan's retired, so you have to find doctors that studied under him. And
Ken, you might
right,
wait
go ahead.
until Ken.
Tell me if I'm going
wait.
too long. But anyways, so I read the book. Thank God I found a doctor here who treats systemic fungal infections. And so he put me on binders and all kinds of stuff. And then also a systemic fungal infection for my nasal cavities. That's what was causing the headaches. And then he put me on a heavy-duty antifungal with binders. I've been on that for about 7 months, and it's been a game changer. I've done a lot of other stuff, shielding my house from the RF radiation from the cell tower, shielding my car and other things to let my body heal. But it's made, I'm back to about 98% of health. So there's a cause and effect that I found, direct cause. I know there's other things that RF radiation causes as far as mitochondria and the calcium channel blockers, does a bunch of other stuff. But the acute, this is killing me. It's mold related in my situation.
Okay, thank you, Hank. Do you have a question specifically for Odette? I appreciate the information.
No, I'm sorry. I just I want to hear people screaming, looking for help, and I felt that same way. So my heart goes out to Lisa, and I just wanted to jump in real quick. Sorry about taking your time.
No, it's great. And I noticed you put in the chat line, call Dr. David Palacios.
Yep, he does telehealth, and he's affordable. Most for first time I found yet to deal with this stuff.
I'm just going to read it for the recording. He's at 208 area code 370-2343. Dr. David Palacios. I can't recommend him because I don't know him, but I'm just repeating your statement, Hank. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hank. It looks like Dory has her hand back up. Dory, did you want to, or Jennifer,
Yes.
I guess would be next. Who's next? Dory?
Just a quick thing. It's helpful. It took me a long time to find someone because I didn't know what kind of doctor to look for, but it's functional medicine. If you look for a doctor of functional medicine, you can get a diagnosis. That was all I needed for certain things that I'm trying to do. And then you have some paperwork to show people so they don't think that you're just out of your mind. So if you're looking for a doctor, functional medicine is one way to find one.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dory. Jennifer, real quickly, we're about out of time. So if you make it quick, Jennifer.
It's a real quick question, just because we have so many that are injured on this call. My main issue is a cell tower with a lot of co-locations blasting into my bedroom window. Can anybody recommend a tent, a protective, sleeping tent? The canopies are really expensive and complicated, but I'm wondering if anyone could recommend a brand of a tent to sleep in.
Odette, do you have any idea, or someone else out there? Please feel free to answer that question.
Scott and
Michael,
Jennifer, there are window filters that you can put on that make a huge difference. They're made in Switzerland, and you just apply it to the glass because the walls seem to reduce it a lot, but the windows really let in the radiation very easily. That might be an option in addition to
Got a
tent.
screen on I've already got the screen, the fabric on the window. I just feel like I need even more protection. Just the tinnitus in my bedroom is now just going through the roof.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Jennifer,
and it's not anywhere else.
Yeah.
I found that I have the EMF protective hat from lessemf.com, which works. And then I bought a swath of that material, enough to kind of form into a sleeping bag. And with those two things on, I find there's some relief. And those two things are relatively inexpensive.
And someone suggesting no metal in the bed, no metal coils will help as well. Okay, Aaron, real quickly, please, and then we'll have to close.
Just very quickly, I'm curious, is rouleau formation considered a biomarker? Is that something that we could be, is that something that we would be able to ask to have done? I know it's a, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm just not working correctly today. So I know, when you're exposed to something, it might be a bit unethical, but if a person requests it, could we find that out? Because that seems to be very significant. And then finally, the last thing is the meetings. So I've attended a few with Odette and Charles, and I have new senators, so I need to get back involved again. But the meetings are really, they go so smoothly, and I just want to put a plug in for the meetings. It's really easier than what you think that it is. Odette and Charles, they take the lead. If you have personal experience, you share that after they're through. If there's time, maybe they last 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, depends on the staffer, what time they have. But they're really excellent to do, and they're easy to do. And the more that you do, the first one is always the most nerve-wracking. But then once you get through the first one, you really don't do anything. It's Odette and Charles, and they really do a powerful presentation. And your staffer does need to hear if you have a personal experience, because that everybody's a human being still. So for a while anyway. So that story is what might drive it home to that staffer, and create that interest. So it's a great meeting to have. Thank you. Thank you. This was a wonderful meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron, for that compliment. And on that note, we'll be closing this meeting. I just want to remind everyone, especially for those who came in late to the Zoom meeting, that we have our NHF 70th anniversary conference in Dallas, Texas on Friday through Sunday, March 14th, 15th, and 16th, just a month away. And I really encourage all of you to go there. Many people have asked if there will be an online link, and I'll just answer real quickly with that and say, yes, we're working on it. Hasn't been put in place yet, but our AV people should be able to do that. But if you can at all get there in person, it'll be much better, I assure you, because you'll get to meet people like Dr. Peter McCullough, Judy Mikovits, Dr. Thomas Levy, Sayer G, Attorney Tom Rentz, and all of your favorite people here at NHF, Greg Kenyon, Charles Froman, Philip Haddad, Kat Carroll, and I will be there, and you'll get to interact with us as well. And there are other people I haven't even mentioned, Howard Flieger and Ross Pelton and Matt Warnock and plenty of others. It'll be really
John Goodman.
a unique opportunity. Yeah, Charles?
Yeah, John Goodman. He's the
John,
father of it.
Yeah, thank you. That was thanks to Charles, who got John to agree to come and be part of a panel there. And that could be maybe the most important reason to go there. Anyway, thank you, everyone. And until next time, Charles, do you have anything you want to conclude with?
Just a reminder in chat, let me just click bump. So it's the latest one. Folks, stop putting stuff in chat. Click today's invitation link. It includes the link to our new state campaign. It includes the link for our Dallas March 15th conference, so you can read it on it. Our monthly Health Freedom Brainstorms, this event is the third Friday, noon Eastern, every month. And of course, Odette will return, the wireless issue will return, but we deal with all the health freedom fronts. So vaccines, pesticides, farms, personalization of health payments, licensing reform to have better integrated physicians and healing. But thank you all for being regulars. And thank you, Scott, Odette, Susan, all the great questioners. And I hopefully with RFK's prioritization of this issue, we'll make some progress. But we do need your help to schedule the meetings with your politicians. Odette and I will do the talking. All we need from you is to get the thing scheduled. And it has to happen. We have a long way to go to educate these politicians that Telecom ain't telling them the truth. So thanks, everyone.
And so
And
concluding words are, Odette, I just want to say, because I forgot to say, thank you for preparing for this meeting and presenting at this meeting today. I didn't want to be remiss in thanking you. Go ahead, please, have the floor.
I just wanted to say that I did include my emails in the chat at the hello@thenationalcall.org. So you can definitely contact me there and we will give you the availabilities that you can schedule around.
Okay, thank you all very much. With that, we'll conclude. Once again, thank you, Odette, for a very nice presentation, and thank you, everyone else, for your interactions with our special guest speaker today, Odette Wilkens. All right, bye, everyone. Hope to see you at the show in Dallas.
Thanks, all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Come to Dallas.